Okay. Hey, what's going on, man? What's up? What's up? What's up? This is Tyrone Desperado. We're bringing you another mini episode. We're going to talk about the Bill Cosby case, what's going on with that, and also how is this going to affect Mr. Cosby's future and the legacy that he left for not just, you know, black entertainment and black dads and black fathers on TV, but just his whole legacy as a whole, because, I mean, he amassed a really kind of outstanding career, and to have something like this, you know, come into the situation and come into play, you know what I mean? We want to talk about how it's going to affect all of that.
Right. And we'll be back.
Yeah.
And I was just going to say, we'll be back at y'all with another episode, probably dropping around Sunday or Monday of next week.
All right, no doubt. Yeah, so basically what happened last week with this case, they declared a mistrial because the jury was deadlocked. You know, for all you don't know, Bill Cosby is being charged with sexual misconduct. I think he's only being charged, it's only one female, I think, in this case, but obviously over the period of the last, you know, 2 years, dozens of women have come forward basically saying that he's drugged them, he sexually assaulted them, and everything, and now all of a sudden it's just starting to come to light, and, you know, it's pretty sad. I mean, he's going to be 80 years old in a few days, and I'm just wondering, how do you feel about this case, and how do you feel it's going to tarnish his legacy?
So, the one thing I did want to point out that does kind of bother me just on, like, what I was reading up about just as far as the trial itself, they were saying that when the jurors were sequestered, they had asked the judge several times. They wanted, like, further instruction because I guess a few of them had trouble coming to a decision as far as, you know, not having any reasonable doubt, which is the legal standard if you're going to convict somebody of a crime. So they had told the judge a couple times that they had a hard time, you know, coming to a decision and that they were going to be deadlocked. They told us now. They were asking questions like, well, how exactly is reasonable doubt defined? You know, and all of these different things, because they were very unclear about a lot of the things. Because what I guess, you know, first just to touch on how trials, you know, are typically structured, it's not just about like the evidence that the district attorney and the you know the state presents in any case. It's about what you're able to prove beyond a reasonable. That's had trouble with it.
Yeah.
So I think there's going to be some controversy going forward, you know, as we get close to the second trial. About whether or not when the jurors told the judge the first time that they were unable to reach a verdict, instead of the judge, you know, granting a mistrial, he basically was like, well, no, you guys need to go back and try again. So the defense team, and they were interviewed by the media as typically, you know, the attorneys on both sides are after a trial, and the defense team was basically saying that they feel like the district attorney and the prosecutor on this case was kind of like in cahoots a little bit, or they felt like, you know, they weren't really giving them, you know, a fair chance. But really, the defense team does look at this mistrial as, even though it's not a guilty or an innocent, the defense team still kind of looks at it as a victory, because when they go into another trial now, they can use that as kind of like cast reasonable doubt. Well, look, the first jury wasn't able to come to a decision, so they're probably going to play off that. Now, for anybody who grew up and anybody who was, you know, born in the late 80s, early 80s, and before that, we all grew up watching the Cosby Show. We all know about Bill Cosby, both as a comedian and as what I don't like when you ask the question about his legacy, what I don't like is about, because this has been going on for years now, what I don't like is how when it comes to a lot of our entertainers, and I'm just going to say it, you know, I don't care if it's controversy, when it comes to a lot of our black entertainers that we hold in high regard, that we put up on a pedestal, whenever there's something that hits the media, regardless of if that person's been charged legally or been, you know, brought into a court of law to have to face official charges, their legacy already takes a hit, because in the court of public opinion, it doesn't matter if you're found guilty or not. Once the people think that you've done something, or once enough people come forward and say that you've done something, I mean, they were pulling his shows off of network TV. They were stripping him of his honorary degrees before he even saw his day in court. And it was the same scenario when we had the whole Michael Jackson thing years back.
There's this part of me that feels some type of way that I can still watch that show without prejudice. Because I'm one of those people who feels he's guilty. You know what I mean? It's just too many women came forward with the same story and things like that, and just looking at the details of the case, looking at these were rumors that actually happened back in the 90s. It was rumored that he was doing these things, and a comedian who did a show in Philly, I forgot his name, but he talked about it, and this is what started bringing everything back to light. He talked about the rumors, you know, that he said, you know, that was, you know, coming forward back in the 90s about, you know, him doing this to women and stuff like that. But I do feel some type of way that I could still watch the show, because I was just watching it a couple weeks ago. It was on TV One, and I was able to watch it without prejudice. You know what I'm saying? Because that show, even though it was the Cosby Show and he was the lead and he was the main guy, it was bigger than him. You know what I'm saying?
It was
a lot bigger than him.
Especially in urban environments, inner cities, you know, the poor communities, the minority communities, because for a lot of people who grew up without that father in the home, he was kind of looked at as that father figure, and that whole Cosby family was looked at as like the perfect all-American black family, because we had never really seen one before that in TV. And honestly, even though there has been certain shows to come out since, we've never really seen that since. You know what I mean? So,
yeah.
But to speak to how you said that you can watch the show without feeling any type of way, I don't really think that's a bad thing, because I feel like if I watch the show right now, I don't even think I will feel a way either, because of two reasons. One, I think there should be, in a lot of cases, there should be a clear distinction and separation from, because you got to remember, a lot of these entertainers, a lot of these people in the public eye, we hold, you know, that we do hold as role models, as pillars of the community and things like that. They don't necessarily ask to be put in that light. I mean, we kind of create this image of entertainers that we like and follow, whoever they are, whether they be athletes, whether they be actors, you know, musicians. We put them in a certain light and we turn them into role models. And we create this image of them, not realizing that they're still people at the end of the day. And I mean, you're always going to have good and bad people. And just because someone's on TV every day, or just because someone is performing at concerts or winning championships in an NBA game or whatever it is, it doesn't mean that they don't have their own demons that they deal with. But I think the public has a way of turning ordinary people, because of their star power, into these kind of, you know, above life, you know, figures. And then when something like this comes out,
you know what I mean? We worship them, and it's really not fair. But I mean, his crimes, unfortunately, is exceptionally heinous, and you know, I wish I kind of felt some type of way watching that show. But at the same time, it's like, if I want to, because this is a show that I would have passed down to my children. You know what I'm saying? And saying, like, I would have amassed the whole collection. These are the things that I would want them to watch.
Talking about the Cosby Show, right?
You know. Yeah.
You're talking, yeah. Well, here's what I'm
talking about the Cosby Show. And then it's like, how do I do that without telling them about the man who created the show and what he's done, you know?
Right. Here's
I guess in the child's mind, you really shouldn't even have to discuss that, but at some point they'll learn it. But maybe at an age where they can process it, and it won't be that big of a deal, but at least they could still take away the message from the show and seeing themselves as young, you know, black men and women who can actually be successful, have a family, live in a nice neighborhood, and just have all the things. They can live the American dream, you know.
Of course, and I'm glad you brought that up as a point, because again, and it all goes back to what I said before. Normal people do these types of things every day. No, it's not right. Yes, it is heinous. And if you're found guilty and if the evidence supports, you know, all of these accounts of what happened, then yes, you should be penalized for the things that you do. But normal people, everyday people, do these types of things every day. And it never hits the news, or it's never made to be a big deal. I think that when it comes to celebrities, when it comes to people who are, you know, above kind of like, you know, the norm, or that we hold on a pedestal, I think that's when it's made a big deal. But here's the question, though. Does the good that a person does, does the bad that a person does overshadow the good? Because even if they pull all
in
the
this
shows
case,
off.
I would say yes. in this
But like you
case, I
said,
would say
though,
yes. Absolutely.
but like you said, and I'm sure this is the case for millions of people, if you can still watch the show and not feel away or still take away the message of what the show is supposed to be about, then I feel like it still had a good influence on the people growing up during that time and the people who looked at the Cosby family, because like you said, it was bigger than TV. The people who looked at that family and said, you know what, I could have a family like that one day, or we don't have to just be rappers and athletes, we can be doctors and lawyers, then that still created good people from that situation. So even if you
exactly, I feel like he tarnished himself as Bill Cosby. I don't feel like he tarnished the Cosby Show or Fat Albert, you know what I'm saying, or Ghost Dad, or just a lot of the good work that he put out. I don't feel like he tarnished that. I can look at those shows and separate the man from the character.
Right.
But
and that's the only thing
Cosby
that I think more people should do.
will forever, for me, be somebody who I just don't respect at all. Like him as an individual, even though he put out this good work, him as an individual, I definitely think he tarnished. Definitely not his work. You know what I mean? I definitely feel like we can still take away the goodness from this. When we talk about how we do hold celebrities to a higher standard, and rightfully so, because a lot of them get paid because of who they are and because of what they represent. And now, one other example I have is with Paula Deen on the Food Network. When she was sued by an employee for making racist and sexist comments.
I remember,
and she got fired from the Food Network. A lot of people was like, well, she's just a human being and blah, 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 and this and that and the other. But the problem is when you're on a Food Network that's a wholesome channel, family-oriented channel, your image is part of why they pay you. They're not just paying you to come on TV and cook. Your image is also part of that. You cannot tarnish your image. And they actually have it in channels like Discovery Channel, HGTV, Food Network that are much more wholesome. They have image clauses in their contract. So when you do something, even if you're not working, that tarnishes that, they have the right to let you go.
And it's the same thing that
and
it's the same thing that a lot of major corporations with their CEOs, presidents, and vice presidents, and all of these major sports organizations, they all have what's called morality clauses, and it's just what you said.
Exactly.
If you do anything that is seen to tarnish the brand or seen to not be wholesome, then yes, like you said, as part of their contract, it is considered a breach in the contract. And that's rightfully so, because you're getting paid millions of dollars to do these things and entertain people. The only problem I have with that is I feel like when it's celebrities and entertainers, because they're held to such a high standard, when things happen, I almost kind of feel like they're punished to a higher degree than an average everyday Joe Schmo would be for doing the same thing. And I guess that's the only place where I would make the separation. If you wouldn't do the same thing.
Not every athlete, not every celebrity or entertainer makes their money being wholesome and being family-oriented. When you talk about, entertainers like Chris Brown and Justin Bieber and Rihanna who are criticized for their bad behavior, I more or less come to their defense only because they weren't wholesome really that much from the beginning. When you talk about Britney Spears, her very first music video, she was wearing, like a short skirt and she had a T-shirt tied up and doing all these sexy dances in school, but you want to criticize her for talking about sex in her music. Well, she wasn't brought up in that. Yes, she was a Disney star when she was young, but she disappeared for a while and came back.
And I'm
so
glad.
She wasn't making money off of a wholesome image. You know what I mean?
But I'm so glad you said that because that's also true for a lot of the, the thing about the Britney Spears, the Christina Aguilera's, a lot of those, even Hannah Montana, look what happened with her. A lot of these celebrities who started off as kid stars on the Disney network and that whole brand, they got a lot of backlash when they finally came into their adulthood and started expressing and experimenting with their sexuality because they were coming to adulthood and trying to separate from the image. Because sometimes that image can trap you. When you're a child, for those child actors, and we even remember going all the way back, Star Search and things like that, where these kids are being cast into the public eye, and then they're looked at a certain way. And a lot of these kids, when they first started out, it might have been their choice to get into that and start out, and, it was fun to them. But a lot of these kids, too, grew up with, complexes and scar because a lot of their parents to them and the money that they were making. We think about all the stories that we've heard over the years and over the decades. And then these kids get into their adulthood and they don't have a real grip on reality. Because it's, the public light is not for everybody. It's not.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's true, the saying that, there's a very thin line between genius and insanity. And for all intents and purposes, Bill Cosby is a genius at, what he did and being able to create that sitcom, which turned into kind of the backdrop for everybody who wanted to be a part of a family like that. And he was one hell of a comedian as well, you know what I mean? But even we think about other comedians like Richard Pryor, we think about the turmoils that he went through, we think about Martin Lawrence and all the stuff that he went through with his show and everything that came out in the media with the issues that he had. We see it over and over again with a lot of these celebrities, and you at what point do you have to wonder, is all that pressure and all that stress, is it really healthy at a certain point?
I feel like Bill Cosby, to me, he's the epitome of a sociopath. I think he one of those men who get into a position of power and they feel like they're entitled to whatever they want. And this is how he went about going to get whatever he wants. He knew who he was. He knew how everybody regarded him as this person that we put on a pedestal. And some of these men, instead of being humble, get a sense of entitlement, like they should have whatever they want whenever they want it, and that's including women.
Right.
And it's just like, our president, you could see that he has this sense of entitlement. He feels like because he was so successful and made all of this money, that he's entitled to whatever he wants. He's greedy with power, and I feel like Bill Cosby was smart enough to keep that hidden under wraps. But I think that's the kind of man he is. I think he's just riddled with power. He loved being in a position of power, and subduing these women into submission was his way of getting the power that he wanted. And it probably got worse after his show ended, and he wasn't, on TV every week. Yeah. And wasn't in everybody's faces and wasn't the household name anymore. And he probably used this as a way to keep himself feeling like he's in control. He has one over on everybody, and it really is a shame,
That makes a lot of sense, and I definitely won't disagree with that at all. And I think the time period that this was all going on, too, played a lot in it, because it's still very recent that women are empowered enough to speak forward about being a woman, because back in the 70s and in the 80s, women who might wanted to have come forward about certain things probably felt like they couldn't, or felt like if they did, it would be detrimental to their progression in their career. But also what I'm going to ask you is this, too, because I feel like Bill Cosby messed up a long time ago. Because you think about people like O.J. Simpson, right, who pretty much was accused of murdering two people, his ex-wife and her friend. And black people far and wide rolled out for him. They weren't even trying to hear it, that it was the chance that he was guilty. But I think where Bill Cosby messed up, and for the people, I'm not saying that he is or isn't innocent. I'm just talking about how people showed up for him. Bill Cosby screwed up because the same people that supported him and the same people that held him into, in that high regard and put him where he was, pretty much turned his back on the black community, the hip-hop community, all those same people that came from those environments where they needed that type of show, the Cosby Show. He pretty much came out publicly time and time again saying it, kind of admonishing, the hip-hop community and young urban, boys and girls who dressed a certain way and talked a certain way. I think he set himself up so that when things did hit the fan the way they did, nobody really wanted to back him up and support him. And I think he created that environment for himself.
Yeah, I mean, I remember those, those interviews he did when he was saying it, and he was attacking black mothers and stuff like that, saying you need to get off welfare, you need to do this and that.
Right.
I remember that, and it was especially sad because, first of all, if you feel this way about certain people within your community, speak to those people directly in that community. Right. Don't go to a public forum because people who are on the outside looking in always have the habit of when certain minorities do certain bad things, they want to start calling out, where's Jesse Jackson, where's Al Sharpton, where's this and that, as if these people speak for the whole community. Right. And he was one of those people that felt like that other people felt like spoke for the black community. So when he's saying these things about his own people, other people are going to believe it and say, okay, well, now the way I feel about black people now are true, that they're this, that they're this, this, and that. Because one of their own, who is on the top of his game, is coming out saying it. And that was so irresponsible.
Exactly.
You know
and it invalidates our whole struggle, because it's like you just said, and white America has been doing this since the beginning of time. They will designate a person at any given time to be the speaker of all black people. And like you just said, when they start to criticize and admonish us, that is the excuse and the green light for white America to say, see, it's true. I agree with you 100%.
And it's sad. And like you said, I think that was the beginning of, it did kind of make it easier for us to kind of say, you know what, he's on his own, you know.
Exactly. So, definitely you can't avoid the fact that his legacy is finished. There's no repairing that. Or do you think in the next trial he'll be found guilty with a different jury? Because we got to talk about
it's hard to believe, but they definitely made it clear that they are going to
they made it
try him. I don't
within
know.
Minutes.
I mean, his.
I said, they made it very clear within minutes of the mistrial being announced. The prosecutor made it clear within minutes after that they were going to try him again.
It's hard to believe. I mean, it's honestly hard to predict what's going to happen, because I thought he was going to be guilty in this trial. When I heard it was deadlocked, I was shocked. You know, I thought he was going.
So you thought he was going to get found guilty? See, I didn't think he was. I didn't think he was. I didn't think he was going to get found guilty. And only because of the fact, even though a lot of the evidence was very damning, it was all circumstantial. And I guess at the end of because you got to remember, of these 30 plus different people that came forward, he wasn't able to be brought up on charges for 98-99% of all that stuff. It was really only this one victim alleged victim that it came down to. And so I thought that because of the amount of time that passed, and because of the lack of evidence and the inconsistencies in the stories that the defense attorney were pointing out with this one star witness that they had, I thought that he was going to get off, because we see it time and time again.
Yeah. Well, his defense basically was that it was consensual and it was Benadryl he gave her. So who knows?
I wanted to talk about this jury, and I'm trying to pull it up right now so I can, so that it's. I don't want to get it wrong. I think they said that it was something like it was only 2 black people on the jury, and I wanted to know what your thoughts on that were while I look it up to see if it's accurate. I want to make sure. I think they said it was like 4 white women, 2 white men, 1 black woman, and 1 black man. That's what I think. That's what.
Yeah, I think I heard something similar to that. I don't think it matters in this case. I really think this isn't similar to the O.J. Simpson case where so many people made it about race. I think this particular situation transcends race. I honestly don't think it made a difference at all.
Not necessarily about the race thing, but I can see how having the jury be majority women, I feel like if that wasn't enough to get a conviction, I don't see that he would be convicted in the next trial, because you have a majority women on this jury, and they still couldn't find him guilty. And what really was the reason for why? I think that a lot of times in a lot of these high-profile cases, I think we saw the same thing in the O.J. Simpson trial. The district attorney kind of jumps the gun on certain things, and they get overzealous, and I think they damage the case more than the fact that the defendant in the case is a high-profile celebrity. And that's what I think kind of happened here also. I mean, I don't know. It's unfortunate because, nobody would have thought that a person that we are would ever be accused of these types of things. And we never do, even though we've seen it time and time again. We've seen it with Michael Jackson. We've seen it with O.J. Simpson. We've seen it with Bill Cosby now. And it's going to happen again, unfortunately. It's not the last time that this type of thing will happen. The only thing I don't agree with is, guilty or not guilty in any type of criminal case, I just think that you shouldn't necessarily be stripped away from the good influences that you've had on people just because now you've done, something bad in the midst of all that.
Yeah. No, I agree, and I just think the verdict is he didn't tarnish his work, he didn't tarnish the good that he's done, but he definitely tarnished himself as a man, and that's that.
Yeah, I mean it is what it is. But to say it's just interesting that you feel like he didn't tarnish it, even though they pulled his shows off for TV, they stripped him of his, the degrees that he was given and all these things, and I don't know. I just feel like he looks like an old, defeated man now to see him.
Yeah. Well, we'll definitely keep up on this story and keep talking about it. Once the new trial comes up, you know what I mean. We'll definitely have more to speak on.
Definitely. Let us know what y'all think. Hit us up at our social media at Straight Talk 315, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and Straight Talk 315 at gmail.com. I'll let Ty sign us out.
All right, man. It's your boy Tyrone Desperado. Have a good day. Have a good weekend. We're recording this on Father's Day, but you won't hear it on Father's Day. But to all the fathers out there doing the most, happy Father's Day.
Yes, sir. We don't get enough credit about that, and we need to do. I really wanted to do a segment on Father's Day. I got so much to talk about that, but it's something I would have wanted to drop on Father's Day, so maybe next year.
All right, no doubt.
All right, man. We'll see you on the next one. Peace and love.
All right, peace.